I'm Captain James Cook. You may have heard that I discovered New Zealand in 1769. You may not know the bigger picture here.
My name is Tupaya. I was the Tahitian navigator and translator who guided him to that new land. We could call it Aotearoa, but each island had its own name.
Apparently their navigators had been exploring this area 2,000 years before me. After our visit, they quickly developed international trade and political arrangements. By 1840, the British Crown had recognised the New Zealand Māori as an independent nation, and it was clear we needed a treaty to continue having settlers on their land.
I'm Governor James Hobson, sent here to get a treaty signed. The first problem is the version they are signing in Māori is not the same as what I'm reading in English. Their version guarantees them Tino Rangatiratanga, highest chieftainship, which makes it plain that I am to be governor over the British settlers, but sovereignty still lies with them.
Ko tēnei tiriti moa ke tonu atu, he aha.
Yeah, right.
By 1860, it was clear that the settlers wanted land that the Maori did not want to sell. The new colonial government's solution was simple: invade and confiscate the land.
The wars were perhaps the darkest time in the story of colonialism.
In the wars, whole villages were exterminated. The mercenary soldiers the settlers brought in were sometimes paid a bonus for every Maori person killed.
After the wars, the prophet, Te Whiti or Rongamai protested at Parihaka non-violently.
For many, many years, we protested peacefully, with marches, blocking roads and so on. They arrested hundreds and locked them in freezing caves in the southern part of the country where many died.
Over the next decades, the colonisation process shifted to what they called assimilation. Banning our language in the schools we had to attend, banning our religion, banning our medicines, building their roads through sacred land, blocking our fishing rights, and endless broken promises about payment for the land which they took more and more of. From being prosperous through trade before the treaty, our people now became the poorest inhabitants in our own land.
What's up, mate? 1954, not treating you well.
Oh, our old house is starting to need repairs, but we can't do repairs because Māori tribal land is zoned rural. Officially no building houses or even repairing them. So we're gonna have to move into the city. It stinks.
Shocking. So what happens to your land?
That's the crazy thing. Under the Māori Affairs Act, if we're not using it, it can be leased out in perpetuity by the government, and they can rezone it urban so the lease works. So some Pakeha, some white person, ends up living on it.
Crikey! Well, I guess the government means well. But doesn't that mean that eventually almost all Maori will be forced off their land? Do you get the lease money?
Sort of. It gets given to the tribal trust fund, and they give it as grants to our children for education. And then, of course, Pakeha complain that Māori are getting special grants that white people can't get.
Ouch, that does stink.
By the 1970s, Māori were mainly forced off their land and in the big cities. That's when protests began in the cities. At first, the government offered some small compensation for stolen land. Then they redefined the treaty and said that the original deal was undemocratic because it gave Māori a special place in law. This kind of colonization happened in so many places around the world that the United Nations passed a Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. New Zealand ratified this declaration in 2010. It explains how you can't just redefine the treaty, and Indigenous people have a right to have their language and culture protected. So now the question is, will we honor what we agreed to?